Need capitals of the world. To the heart of innovation, this is Opportunities to Consider with your host, author, speaker, and corporate strategist, Hunter Gaylor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Markets Hunter. This is the CEO Talk. I am your host, Hunter Gaylor. I'm actually coming to you live today from the heart of innovation, as we saw in that little opening preview here in New York City, live from the Big Apple. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by the CEO of DAIS, DAIS Corporation, and we're going to be actually talking about some incredible innovations. And make sure you like and subscribe. I know that we are live. We are on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, across all the streaming platforms, coming to you live with the executives and the CEOs, asking the real questions, diving into the technology in such a way that we can understand and make better informed decisions and really get a good idea as to what's going on. So I'm going to bring in our guest. I'm joined by Tim. Tim, hi. Thank you for joining us today on the Markets Hunter CEO Talk Show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, it's really great. So, I really want to kind of dive in right off the bat. I know we do this with a lot of our programming. We just cut right to the chase. With your organization, and I think it's important that people understand, DAIS, if they want to find some information, they can go to daiscorp.com or DAIS Analytics, I believe is your site, .com, and the stock symbol is DLYT, so people can check out your company. But Tim, give us a little background on the company, because you're doing some incredible innovations in really kind of the green energy, refrigeration, an industry we haven't seen a lot of innovation happen for quite some time. So tell us a little bit about that, Tim.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. Hunter, back up just a second, because when you talked in the opening, and you said it again in your comments just now, you use the term innovations. I want to kind of put this into perspective. If you look at what we're doing, you can liken it to penicillin or the semiconductor. Penicillin took some time to develop, but today it's the basis for well over 90% of all of the pharmaceutical industry. And you look at the semiconductor. When that first became something that came out of a transistor in Bell Labs and then Texas Instruments, I don't think anybody had the idea where it would be today. It's in children's shoes. It's in avionics. So I liken what we're doing with a family of plastics. We call it a platform of nanomaterial. We're using the features of the plastics to do the heavy lifting that today is done by pumps, motors, energy-consuming things that break. The uses span many industries.
So, Tim, with the different industries, let's talk about air conditionings. And before we get into air conditionings, let's talk about PFAS, because that's been in the news recently in Europe. Let's, for the audience's sake, what are PFASs?
PFASs are chemicals that have been used for years. They're called, the street name for it is called forever chemicals. Recently, I think you may have seen that 3M says that in the next couple of years, they're out of the business entirely. These are products that are made by processes that use chemicals that are incredibly tiny. And what people have found in the water world is that it's into the potable water system all over the world. For instance, last summer, BBC did a study in the UK. Over 60% of all the school districts were heavily affected by PFAS contaminated water. So it's something that's, from the water industry perspective, and I've been around the water industry now in terms of what we've been doing for well over a decade. It's moving quickly from a policy perspective, not only with the EPA in the US, but with their counterparts around the world. So it's something that's tiny. It's in water. It can do some bad things to you. It's got to come out of the water.
These are harmful chemicals.
Incredibly harmful, yes. So there's two parts to this PFAS story as far as we're concerned. The first part is when you use the material and you contaminate the water. We could take that out, and we've proven we could take that out to the point where there are no traces found. And you're talking parts per trillion, not billion, not million, trillion. So it's pretty tiny, and we're really fortunate that the material works so well in this area. But the other part of it is that, okay, you've got these processes that are making these products. The products themselves, some of them have PFAS in them. So, okay, you make it, you create PFAS, you use the product for a number of years, you go to dispose of the product, then you have it coming around a second round. So, for instance, if you look at most people that are making fuel cells or electrolyzers for the green energy world, they're using a membrane that's perfluorinated, fancy word, but it's a PFAS material. So
So it's a
we have
toxic
the
material.
opportunity, we could clean it up and we can replace the materials, the product that they're building, as opposed.
So Tim, talk to me a little bit about, and I'll put this in relevant terms. We just had some tragic events happen throughout the country with these train derailments, and these toxic, harmful chemicals have been put in the waterways. With your technology, can you talk about how, if it were to be applied to purifying the water, would you be able to purify these toxic cleanups with your technology? And can you elaborate on how you're able to do that?
The scientific or the engineering side of me says error. Don't answer that question directly because yes, we can. Is the
Right.
direct point, but there's a concern that I have and the people I work with have because we never want to say that we could do something and then disappoint that we can't. So
Sure.
there are some things that drive us crazy when it comes to processing water, and I don't want to bring the negative up. I just want to caveat with my answer with I believe 99% that we can do it. I'll just leave that little gap for a pivot in the event that there's something in that water that we can't handle. But that's the beauty of what we do is there's no, if you look at the way most water is treated, there's a pre-treatment and there's the actual treatment. We don't use pre-treatment because of the way the material works. So if there is something in the water, we would have to establish a pre-treatment for it.
So if we kind of move the conversation a little forward with regards to some of the applications outside of the water purification. Let's talk about the air conditioning business. This was really through our research before we had you on the program. It seems to me that what you're able to do, this is the first major technical change in air conditioning since Carrier invented it back in, I believe, the 30s. And you could probably correct me on that, but I'd really like to dive into this because it seems to me that this is a massive multi-billion dollar, over a $600 billion worldwide market just in the air conditioning and refrigeration space. Talk to me a little bit about the innovation in the air conditioner that DAIS has been able to do.
There's so much I can say about that. It's incredible. It starts with the architecture.
Okay.
What Mr. Carrier did back in the early 1900s is fantastic. There's no doubt about it. And so many people have labored over the past century to improve it from the standpoint of different materials, different gases, control systems. Fantastic. But the basic architecture is flawed. And it boils down to this. What you're doing is you're taking something, you're cooling it down to a certain level, and then you're heating it back up again. That's kind of dumb. So we don't do that. It's entirely different. We're using a little bit of water, some vacuum, and this membrane to treat not only the temperature, but the humidity. Today, in the system, any system you have, those are treated together. When you walk into a room and you turn the thermostat up or you turn the thermostat down, it's treating the temperature and the moisture in the space the same way. We can split that because a lot of times you don't need to monkey with the temperature, you need to move the humidity. And that's just one of the areas where you get an incredible kick in terms of energy efficiency. So it starts with the architecture. Again, it uses the features in the materials, and it works incredibly well. The beauty of what we're doing, there are a lot of people that are talking about doing things with the next generation of air conditioning, and some of them are really, really clever. I believe we're ahead of that because if you want to come and see it working today, it's sitting in our facility outside of Tampa. It works.
Well, that's incredible. And I like how you talked about, you started with the architecture because that's where it begins. And because we haven't really seen any real innovation, obviously air conditioning is something that affects the globe, especially when we look at energy consumptions. So with rising prices, we look at there's about 10 to 11% annual growth in energy consumption in this particular market, with 6% of all energy consumption coming from the refrigeration market. What does this mean for your company in getting some of that market share, but also potentially, with what you said, reducing energy costs?
people talk about perfect storm. Perfect storm it carries a negative connotation.
Mhm.
The positive is called perfect opportunity, and that's what this is. We're sitting at the precipice of an incredible expansion in terms of technology and improvement in terms of innovation and all the nice words you want to use with it. But the bottom line is the business opportunity is mammoth. Since I started 8 years old selling newspapers, I look at this from the standpoint that you have what you need in a toolbox. You need more people, you need more resources to get out there and make it bigger
Mhm.
worldwide. Again, you're dealing with something that as big as a semiconductor, as big as penicillin. And it's not just me talking about this, the whole industry. If you look at Frost and Sullivan, they've said for years that advanced materials are going to rule the next century. And they're right. And this is a perfect example of it.
Well, Tim, I think that's important, and I'd like to just talk a little bit because I've read some articles. I'd like you to go into it. Can you talk about one of the large international Japanese industrial companies that you're working with, and what that could potentially look like in terms of revenue for, say, this year and next year if there's full market adoption?
Sure, I can't really go into too much because there's obviously documents we've signed, and there's sensitivity there from a market perspective. But there, you have some people that have taken what I refer to as a risk with their
Hmm.
jobs in corporate America or corporate international. But the point is that we're building the usable components of what we call this nano clear or nano air system. And they're going on a roof of a building in some place in the US, and we're going to get a lot of information from it. So we're working on that, and then once that's completed, then there's an opportunity to expand that throughout that corporation. Uh, the value in terms of revenue this year is, if all goes well, some place in the neighborhood of about 2.5, maybe $3 million. But beyond that, um,
I mean, it seems
substantially
to me
larger.
like this is a multi-billion-dollar market cap, and with some of the things going on, and
Oh yeah.
if you're in Europe with this technology, it seems it's going to be a major game changer.
Yes. Again, because you look at PFAS, PFAS is driving the folks in Europe. The EU is adopting regulations right now that limit the types of refrigerants you can use in an air conditioning system or a refrigeration system. That's a huge thing. We don't use refrigerants, none. So in my list before, we said a little bit of water, you've got the membrane and some vacuum, and that's how it does it. So huge, huge, huge impact. Clearly, in terms of industries, people say game changers, all sorts of fancy terms. The material is disruptive, and I for years fought using that term because so many people use it, they abuse it. This is truly disruptive because of what it can do across so many industries.
Tim, talk to me a little bit about green hydrogen and the green hydrogen market. I think it would be very good if you can kind of give us a history and up to the current point of the green hydrogen market and what that means for DAIS.
Green hydrogen. First of all, what it means is that you're making hydrogen using renewable energy. Rule of thumb, you need 5 parts of energy for 1 part of hydrogen. And to do that with conventional electricity, buying it from a utility, you can't afford it. Because it's renewable, the idea is that it's palatable from a financial perspective to run or produce hydrogen in that manner. The beauty of hydrogen is it is a wonderful fuel source because you're taking water, H2O. You're splitting the hydrogen out, and you're creating a stream of water as a result. So you have electrolyzers that do that. You have fuel cells that use that, PEM fuel cells. Um, PEM fuel cell in the market worldwide, you're looking at someplace in between, from what I've seen, around $20 billion by the end of this century, and it's going to get bigger than that because you have now a new fuel source that's non-polluting. So it's a fragile thing. It's been around for a long time, and I say it is been around. The idea of using hydrogen for a fuel source, but because of a lot of these innovations, not only ours, but people that make the unit itself, and frankly, some of the business models are really impressive. You're not buying the equipment; you're buying fuel, just like when you go to a gas station. So, all that together, I think that you're going to see hydrogen play a major role in at least transportation and some industries in the coming years. That it's clearly not the case, and you're talking a lot of money, and you're talking worldwide, and we could be a solid player in that. We have the product today.
Well, that's incredible. And Tim, I just want to say thank you for joining the program today. I know we're going to have you back on. We covered a lot of topics today, And, for everyone that's watching, make sure you take a good look at their company. It's DAIS. As you can see that their stock symbol, we have it there on the lower thirds here that you can see it. It's DLYT. They're doing some incredible innovations. We look forward to having Tim back. And Tim, just thank you so much. And I look forward to having you on the show again.
Great. Hunter, thank you very much for the opportunity. And we covered a lot of ground, like you said. And it sounds like we're jumping around. We're not really. There's a lot of focus that goes on within the company. It's hard when you have something that's so,
Right.
oh my gosh, adaptable. We could sit here for hours talking about the number of things we can do. Beauty of it is that if you're looking for something that has potential in many areas downstream, here it is. It's beautiful. It's here. It's a perfect opportunity.
Everyone, thank you so much. Tim, CEO of DLYT, thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you back on the program.
Thank you.